Hi there, Alan Combies here. Welcome to another edition of Morning Coffee Live here in our Facebook group, Morning Coffee with Alan. And as often happens with these with these live videos, they Wednesday morning shows up, and I start thinking, okay, what do I want to talk about? And I start getting a lot of, sometimes something pops right in my head and I'm ready to talk. Hey, Christina, how are you? Sometimes things pop right into my head and I'm ready to talk and I'm ready to speak to you about it. Or sometimes I have a question from you guys that I want to answer. And then there's times like today where, and I'm going to kind of walk through this because I think one of the challenges that we have, is day to day and just with maneuvering our way through life, is when we have a lot of thinking going on, when we have a lot of insecure thoughts or stressful thoughts or any of that stuff, we tend to, I was going to say, blow it out of proportion. And I don't know if that's the best descriptor, but this is what we do. This is what we do with our challenges, our problems, our symptoms. If you think about who you really are, and you think about how you are not your body, you're not your thoughts, you are consciousness, and you are the one observing your body, you're the one observing your thoughts. And the challenge becomes is we forget that we're our consciousness, and rather than seeing that we're the observer, we think we are the thing being observed. So I want you to think about that. So if you have thoughts, if your consciousness is focused on thoughts of a future event that hasn't happened yet, but let's say, I don't know, let's just take a mundane example. Let's say you have to go to work and you're thinking, oh, I don't want to go to work. When I get to work, I'm going to have to do this and see this person and do that and all of this. And so your experience in that moment will be a reflection of where your consciousness is focused in that moment. Now, your experience, what tends to happen is, rather than recognizing that we're witnessing thought, not the actual future, we don't see that. We think we're actually witnessing the future. And so we believe the feelings. We think the feelings are telling us about a future event that hasn't happened yet. And as long as our consciousness is zeroed in on that, and we think we're that future event, we're going to continue to, feel those feelings and kind of be lost in thought. And the challenge becomes is we misinterpret those feelings. We think those feelings are giving us some sort of information about the future. Your feelings don't know anything about the future. Your feelings are simply a reflection of where your consciousness is focused in that moment. Now, when you really get this, it can be quite liberating, because going back to the example I was about to share, I was sitting here about to press the live button, and I started having a lot of thinking about, I don't have anything to talk about, I don't know what I'm going to share, yada, 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 on and on. And as I was thinking that stuff, I began to feel it. Now, I was getting uptight. I was getting, like, do I even want to do this today? All of these thoughts, all these feelings. And then I realized what was going on. my thoughts were just, or my consciousness was just very zeroed in on, just preoccupied. It was preoccupied with those thoughts. And as soon as I realized what was going on, I want you to think of your consciousness as a beam of light, right? It's a beam of light, and in that moment, my beam of light was very narrowly focused on just, insecure thinking, right? It was very narrowed in, and so I couldn't see anything for a moment except that thinking and the feelings that were being expressed, right? They were being generated from those thoughts. As soon as I realized what I was doing, well, my beam of light began to open up, and I began to see just enough, just enough outside of that, that narrow-minded viewpoint. I began to see, and that was enough for me to go, hold on a second, what if I just press play and see what comes out of my mouth, And that's another piece, that's the other piece there is, hey Phyllis, good morning. The other piece there is that we often really, really underestimate our ability to handle the moment. We underestimate our ability to handle the moment. And so as I recognized that my consciousness was very zeroed in on specific thoughts, as I recognized that, it opened up that beam so that I could see more, and new insight, fresh new thinking came in. In this case, it was, hey man, just hit the play button and see what comes out. Now, if I didn't trust myself, because here's the deal. I could have had more thoughts about, but if I do press the button, I don't know if I'm going to be able to say anything, and so what you begin to do, what I invite you to begin to do, is begin to just see what happens, see what happens, and try it on for yourself. See what happens as you step into the moment and do the thing, and see what your capacity is to handle stuff. Now, even if it doesn't go swimmingly, you get feedback, you learn something. And this is all we do. This is all life is. It is recognizing what we're actually up against, recognizing how our experience is being created from moment to moment. It's always being created with thought, and whatever feelings we're feeling are a result of that specific thought. And our consciousness is going to determine what sort of thinking we're going to be feeling in that moment. And you can either focus your consciousness in like a laser beam, or you can wake up and allow it to expand. Now, I really think that our consciousness is always expanding and zeroing in on specific thought, and that's the way it goes. So you can think of it as your consciousness always expanding and collapsing. But if we know that that's what's going on, we don't need to get so concerned when we get caught up. And in fact, when we are caught up, we can allow our consciousness to expand in that moment. We're more apt to allow, for our consciousness to basically to wake up, to wake up from the trance that we're in. And as we wake up from that trance, well, then we begin to fall out of that thinking. And this is just the way life goes. We're sort of in trance, out of trance, living in thought, living in feeling. And to the extent that we get preoccupied with any one thought or any group of thoughts is the extent to which we're going to feel those thoughts, and the extent to which we remember how it works, and that in any given moment when we're caught up in what looks real, it looks like a problem, it looks like it looks like a future that is, bound to happen, or we're caught up in traumatic memories from our past, right? It's all made of the same stuff. As we remember that all of that is just a preoccupation, and we can fall out of it in any given moment, and we can test it. We can test it just by taking the next step, whatever that might be. Whatever that might be. I hope that makes sense. I don't know. I feel I have a point, and then I kind of wonder. So I don't know if it's making sense, but I'm gonna trust. I'm gonna trust. Phyllis, it's good to see you here. If you two have any questions, I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, I'll just pause for a moment and see if there's anything else that I can share. It's this, this whole thing about thought and consciousness and being able to sort of wake up and step out of whatever thinking you're caught up in. It really is, like the one thing. And, I love using fast EFT tapping to help people sort of expand their consciousness, kind of if they're caught up in a traumatic memory and, or they've got traumatic memories kind of running in the background and they have beliefs about who they are and what they are, it's all made of the same stuff. It's all made of thought. And tapping is a really wonderful way to help pull them out of that preoccupation. Help pull people out of the preoccupation with those particular thoughts. And so that is a really, really wonderful way to begin to expand your consciousness. Now, the next phase is really to have this conversation, because once we realize that it's all made of the same stuff, and we always have the opportunity to stand away, to step away, to wake up to what we're actually experiencing, well, to me, that just means you become, it becomes a journey of needing tools less and less, and really deepening our awareness, deepening our understanding of how life works, of how life works, and who you truly are. So I think that's all I have today. I hope that's helpful. Please leave a comment, or if you have any questions about this. This is a conversation that I think is really, really important for, just, I think it's the number one thing, when it comes to our relationship with other people, our relationships with life, our relationship with ourselves. And I can think of no other topic of discussion that can have more impact on you and your experience of all those things. So this is why I do what I do. All right, cool. So that's all for today. Thanks for tuning in. And as always, like I said, if you have any questions or anything you'd like me to talk to or discuss, the U.S. And happy everything, wherever else you are. Okay, bye.